The i5-7500, a CPU released in 2017 that was part of the generation right before AMD really started to compete again with Ryzen, which in turn made Intel up their core counts with Coffee Lake. This processor is one of the last released in the Kaby Lake architecture. Being a mid-range chip, it has 4 cores and 4 threads, 6 MB of cache, and one at 3.4 GHz. It also has an HD630 as integrated graphics, which I have been testing quite a lot. While it has started to age a little bit, I would say that it is still very capable of playing games nowadays, despite only having 4 threads. Starting with one of the most CPU demanding games I own, Battlefield 1 runs pretty well on the CPU. Using the max settings at 1080p, I was still CPU bottlenecked, but the game still ran at an average of 100 FPS and a 1% low of 30. I wanted to test Battlefield 5, but I do not own it, and it runs pretty much the same as Battlefield 1 anyway. I also could have tested Call of Duty 2042, but I do not own this one for obvious reasons. The beta also runs terribly so. GTA 5, while a bit of an older game, it is still relevant today, though as expected the game runs flawlessly. Using the maximum settings at 1080p, the game is still CPU bottlenecked, and the average frame rate is 127, with 1% lows of 57. A constant 60 FPS lock is probably possible using this processor, although higher refresh rates are another story, as the frame rate fluctuates between 100 and 130. Assetto corsa competizione. This game isn't often seen benchmarked, but playing against AI does seem like it could be a pretty good benchmark, which is something I kinda forgot to do. Running one full lap of Silverstone, at max settings obviously, the game ran at an average of 192 FPS and 1% lows of 72, which is really good. Multiplayer races do not run much worse, although I do not have any number, and AI races, well, I forgot. But having played the game for a little bit, it runs really well. Dead by Daylight once again at maximum settings is always CPU bottlenecked. The average frame rate is 107 and 1% lows are of 12. This game is surprisingly CPU demanding, and also unfortunately locked at 120 FPS, which didn't really matter for the CPU anyway. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, while a bit of an older game as well, it is still widely played, but the game mostly being run on a single core and running on the X9 really does not help its frame rate, even if it's still really high. Running at 1024x768 and the lowest settings, the game runs an average of 163 FPS and has 1% lows of 22. This was during a deathmatch against bots, as the game refused to record a demo against real players for some reason, so the frame rate is a little worse than it should be, but I do think it is more accurate than the benchmark map. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, once known as a terribly optimized game, seems to have redeemed itself over time. Running at the maximum setting at 1080p, the average frame rate was 62 FPS and the 1% lows were of only 4 FPS. This wasn't really noticeable in game, and I did not really notice any sort of stuttering. Apex Legends, a game running on a heavily modified source engine. The game once again was running at maximum settings and 1080p, and over an entire game, the game ran at 117 FPS average and 1% lows of 45 FPS. And finally, Fortnite, which was recently upgraded to Unreal Engine 5. Once again running the maximum settings, the average frame rate was of 72, and the 1% were of 5. Once again, I did not feel any sort of stuttering, so those 1% are not really scary. And as a side note, what the hell happened to the game? Everything is just so weird now. In the end, this just makes me feel that I don't even need to upgrade the CPU. It still runs pretty much anything I threw at it, and the only game that really had an issue was Battlefield 2042, but this game is really bad, whether it's the optimization or the gameplay. I don't think upgrading from a modern 4-core CPU is really dead right now. But I'm still going to do it, mostly because I like messing with emulators and encoding.